Hi Craig, before us is your 290 and it is all back together, and here's a little bit of what I did to it. The wire harness from the tender to the jack panel in the back, one of the wires was completely out and three of them were frayed very badly, and so really there was not a good way to salvage that without running the risk of shorts. And again, it was almost too short as it was, so I couldn't, shorten it up. So I replaced all that. I did a brand new harness, and I made it from wire with silicone rubber insulation, so it's nice and flexible. I also, because they're all black wires, I used short, stubby pieces of shrink tubing on three of them. So if you or me or somebody else ever does service on this, it's very quick to figure out, okay, the yellow goes there, the yellow goes there, that kind of thing. The other thing I found was the bottom set of reverse fingers on the reverse unit had holes in them. They were shot. And so I replaced those. And in the course of double checking wiring, which when you wire things up, there's a one way to do it. Well, I should say there's one way that I'm comfortable doing, and I found some, I don't know, it seemed to be wired up kind of weird, and so I basically because I was going to change out the wiring and all that, I just went ahead and rewired it all. So it's what we call a standard wiring. In the process, I decided to do something a little above and beyond. So from the factory, this came with what's called a 4-wire process. And with a 4-wire jack panel, you do your wires in a certain way here at the engine and here in the reverse unit. I decided to do a 5-wire, which means the wiring gets a little different, and you add a 5th wire that goes to the smoke unit and the headlight. And what that does is it gets you better smoke and brighter headlight at lower RPMs. So I went ahead and did that. And again, I thought, well, I'm redoing everything anyhow, why not? The thing I don't like typically about the 5th wire is it's oftentimes just soldered into the jack panel, and that always seems like a terrible idea to me. What I'm trying to show you, and I've got everything on the wrong side here, is I actually used a micro plug here, and I went ahead and just used both red and black as one wire because they're such small wires. But there's a disconnect here, so for some reason you ever want to disconnect the tender from the engine, you can pull those apart and pull your jack panel out, undo your screw, and they'll be separated. Per the norm, as you're familiar with my repairs, I cleaned everything up. Pickup wise here in the tender, I cleaned everything up inside the engine shell, outside the engine shell, cleaned and polished and lubricated. The brushes in the motor, they were somewhere around 50%, 40 to 50%. Would they have still worked? Yeah, but I went ahead and put fresh ones in. I hope you're okay with that. So those will last forever. The springs are good, so no issues there. Couple of things that I found that were curious. I found one of the driver flanges kind of smashed a little bit. I found 2 front wheels up here with broken flanges and 1 tender wheel back here with a broken flange. So I actually replaced 3 wheels on that were plastic that had broken flanges. The flange here in the driver, I was able to take a hammer and gently tap on it, and when I see it go on the curves, it's got a tiny bit of a wiggle, but it's very slight. So that comes from that little bit of deformation. I don't know if this was dropped before it was shipped, if it was dropped in transit. I don't know, but something happened. It had some sort of a hard impact that, like I said, it kind of smashed the flange down, and like I said, broke 2 flanges up here and 1 back here. What else? Your smoke unit. Well, I guess the reason the smoke unit wasn't working is because this thing is a crispy, toasted, and burned out mess. And the wick is just the solid mass. So I'm gonna pull all of that out. The other thing is I found the screws for the smoke unit just really hard to get out. I've seen this a few times now. It's just, there's something that I don't know where it comes from, but it gets in this stuff. It gets in the threads. This thread was really, or the screw was kind of hard to get out. So I think I'm going to use ultrasonic cleaner and just really go after all of this. It's there's stuff in there that, does it affect operations? No, but it should be clean. If I'm going to clean this, I want to do a good job for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish disassembling the chassis, and it's all going to go in the ultrasonic cleaner. Another thing that's was noteworthy is this cardboard liner. And I'm curious if maybe this is in the smoke unit. I'm curious if this cardboard liner would come loose. Okay, now it will. I was I was not able to get this thing to come loose at all. So it just went in the cleaner with everything else, and at least now it's something that could be pried loose. Not that it needs to be. It's just cardboard insulator. But as you can see, there is just a lot of gunk in here that now will just easily come out, scrape loose. So good deal. Liking what I'm seeing there. The nichrome wire was charred, as well was the wick. So I rebuilt all of that for you. It's got fresh wick in it. It's got fresh nichrome wire. The light bulb was fine, so I left it. You're good to go now. So the next thing I'll do here is I'll just run it a little bit more for you, and then we'll put some cars on it and put it through the paces. And I'll go ahead and do this today and tomorrow, and just make sure there's no screws come loose or anything surprise happens. One of the things I love about these 290s is they are just such a solid engine. Looks like I don't have your front wheels on, but do that. And even though they don't have traction tires, as you know, they're pretty heavy, and so they pull really well. You see the reverse unit works very nicely. Again, you've got nice smoke at slow speeds because I did that fifth wire. We're running here at about 50 miles per hour on the throttle. So it's a good running engine. It runs smoothly. Oh, there is one more thing that I did. I noticed that the commutator surface had a little bit of cupping to it. I also noticed a real slight wobble to it, so I used my lathe to resurface the commutator plates, so the copper plates. I did those. I didn't. There's still the smallest amount of cupping at the edges of the copper because I didn't want to take it too thin, but I got a lot of it out. And then I took the wobble that was in the armature out. So what that means is you're going to get, a lot smoother operation and faster operation. And your springs and brushes, because they're not bouncing all over the place, in theory should hold up better and longer for you. So anyhow, all right, we'll get some cars on here and let it run. So here we are post wheel surgery, and here's the performance at this point. So as I was putting a video together for you, Craig, I realized I was both hearing and seeing something that I was not okay with. And if you go back and listen to the videos, you may hear a thumping that seems to be in time with the rotation of the wheels, and especially seem to notice it on video clips by the overhead bridge. The other thing I saw was going into the curves, a lot of wobbling. And I told you that I took a lot of the bend and twist out of the wheel and the drive wheel that had been deformed by some sort of hard impact. But what I didn't realize is how the entire wheel had been squished into more of an oval, because I just couldn't tell it until I put it on my lathe and spun it. And realized that a good quarter of it was flat. So I turned the wheel, and I turned the flange, and I turned the front, and I trued it up. And if you turn it over and look at it, you'll still see there's a little bit of imperfection where the blunt force trauma hit the flange of the wheel, but it spins true, as you can see in this video clip. And the engine's running a lot smoother than it was before. I still see a little bit of a wobble, but it's hard to know because pretty much all my flyer engines have a little bit of wobble, so I'd just say that's kind of normal. So I wanted to let you know the obsessive compulsiveness kicked in, and I just couldn't leave it alone. But I do this because if I were keeping this engine, this is what I do, and I want to do the best I can for you.